history is supposed to make sense. Ancient civilizations rose and fell in isolation, separated by oceans too vast to cross. The Americas remained untouched until 1492. Vikings never sailed past Newfoundland, and humans 100,000 years ago were primitive hunter-gatherers with stone tools. That's the story we've been told. But what happens when the evidence doesn't match the narrative? What happens when we find a Roman head buried in pre-Columbian Mexico, a Viking coin in Native American soil, or a hammer encased in rock that's supposedly 100 million years old? These artifacts exist, they're real, and they don't belong where they were found. Today, we're examining 6 discoveries that challenge everything we think we know about human history. And in 2025, new research is finally giving us answers, some more unsettling than the mysteries themselves. Number 6. The London Hammer, a tool that shouldn't exist. Discovered 1936, London, Texas. In 1936, a couple walking along a creek near London, Texas, stumbled upon a strange rock formation. Embedded inside was what looked like a hammer, its wooden handle partially fossilized, its iron head sealed inside the stone like it had been trapped there for eons. When geologists examined the rock, some claimed it could be over 100 million years old, dating back to the Cretaceous period, the age of dinosaurs. But here's the problem. The hammer looks modern. The iron head is made of incredibly pure iron, 98% pure, with traces of chlorine, a composition that doesn't match anything from the prehistoric era. The craftsmanship is too refined, too deliberate. It's not a crude stone tool, it's a manufactured object. So we're left with 2 impossible options. Humans existed 100 million years ago and had advanced metallurgy, which contradicts everything we know about evolution. Or the rock formed around a modern hammer through a rapid process called concretion, where minerals harden around objects in just decades or centuries. The skeptical explanation. Most scientists lean toward option 2. Concretion can happen surprisingly fast under the right conditions. Dissolved minerals in water can cement around an object and form rock-like formations in less than a century. The hammer was likely made in the 1800s, dropped or discarded near the creek, and quickly encased in mineral deposits rich in lime and iron oxide. But here's what doesn't add up. Why is the iron so pure? Most 19th century tools were made with lower-grade iron. Why hasn't it rusted? Even inside the rock, most iron would show significant corrosion. Why was it found in such a remote location, far from any mines or settlements? The verdict, 2025. The London hammer is almost certainly a 19th or early 20th century tool that became encased in fast-forming rock. But its unusual purity and preservation keep the mystery alive. It's a reminder that sometimes impossible artifacts have natural explanations, but those explanations raise questions of their own.
Number 5. The Fuente Magna Bowl. Sumerian writing in Bolivia? Discovered 1950s, exact date unclear, near Lake Titicaca, Bolivia. High in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia, near the legendary Lake Titicaca, sits one of archaeology's most controversial objects, the Fuente Magna Bowl. At first glance, it looks like a typical ancient clay vessel, heavy, worn, unassuming. But carved inside are symbols that don't belong. They look Sumerian. The Sumerians lived in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, over 5,000 years ago, one of the world's first civilizations. Their cuneiform writing is one of humanity's oldest scripts. So how did Sumerian-style writing end up carved into a bowl in South America, thousands of miles and an entire ocean away? The mystery. The symbols on the Fuente Magna bowl bear a striking resemblance to Proto-Sumerian cuneiform. Some researchers claim they can even translate parts of it, referring to ancient deities and rituals. If authentic, this would suggest transoceanic contact between ancient Mesopotamia and South America, a shared ancient language that predates both civilizations, evidence of a lost civilization that influenced both regions. The skeptical explanation. Most mainstream archaeologists dismiss the bowl as a hoax or misidentification. Here's why. No clear provenance. The bowl's discovery is murky, no professional excavation, no documented context. The writing could be coincidental. Ancient symbols often look similar across cultures without being connected. South American scripts existed. The symbols might just be misidentified local writing. But here's what keeps the debate alive. No one has definitively proven it's fake. The bowl exists in a Bolivian museum and has been examined by multiple researchers. Some linguists insist the symbols are too specific to be coincidence. The verdict, 2025. Without proper archaeological context, the Fuente Magna bowl remains suspicious, but it's never been conclusively debunked either. If real, it would shatter our understanding of ancient global contact. If fake, it's one of history's most elaborate hoaxes. Either way, it refuses to go away. Number 4. The Ubaid lizard figurines, reptilian gods of ancient Mesopotamia. Discovered 1919 onward, Tel Al-Ubaid, Iraq. Age, approximately 7,000 years old. In the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists unearthed something deeply unsettling. Small clay figurines from the Ubaid culture, one of humanity's earliest known societies. At first, they seemed like typical ancient art, until researchers looked closer. These figures have reptilian features, elongated skulls, slanted almond-shaped eyes, scaled lizard-like bodies. Some hold babies, others appear to be nursing infants. They're depicted in human poses, standing, sitting, performing rituals, but their faces are unmistakably non-human. The mystery. The Ubaid people left no written records, no myths, no explanations, so we have no idea what these figures represent. Were they gods, deities worshipped by early humans, shamans, ritualistic masks or spiritual symbols, memories, depictions of beings the Ubaid people actually encountered? The ancient extraterrestrial theory. Some researchers point to these figurines as evidence of extraterrestrial contact. The elongated heads and large eyes resemble modern descriptions of gray aliens. Could ancient humans have been visited and worshipped by beings from another world? The skeptical explanation. Mainstream archaeology dismisses this as exaggerated artistic style. Many ancient cultures depicted gods and spirits with non-human features, animal heads, wings, horns. The Ubaid figurines might simply represent serpent deities common in ancient mythology, stylized humans with exaggerated features for spiritual significance, or mythological beings that existed only in their imagination. But here's what's strange. Why reptilian? Why not bird-like or wolf-like or fish-like, common in other ancient art? And why are they shown in such domestic human poses, nursing children, holding tools? The verdict in 2025. The Ubaid figurines remain one of archaeology's most unsettling mysteries. They're too old and too consistent to dismiss as random art. Whether they represent gods, aliens, or something else entirely, one thing is certain. 7,000 years ago, the Ubaid people carved these figures for a reason, and we may never know what it was. Number 3. The Tecáxic Calixtlahuaca head, a Roman artifact in pre-Columbian Mexico. Discovered 1933, Tecáxic Calixtlahuaca, Mexico. Dated, burial site from approximately 1200 to 1500 AD. In 1933, archaeologist Jose Garcia Payan was excavating an ancient burial site in central Mexico. Among the pottery, jewelry, and typical Mesoamerican artifacts, he found something that stopped him cold. A small terracotta head, bearded, Roman-looking, completely out of place. The problem? This burial was dated to before European contact, centuries before Columbus, before any known transatlantic voyage. And yet, the head's style, its facial features, beard, and craftsmanship looked distinctly Roman, not Aztec, not Mayan, Roman. How is that possible? Theory 1. Ancient transatlantic contact. Some believe Roman sailors or traders from the Roman Empire's far-reaching network somehow crossed the Atlantic and reached Mexico long before history records. Evidence supporting this? Roman coins have been found in Venezuela. Ancient amphorae, storage jars resembling Roman designs, have washed up on Brazilian beaches. Some researchers argue ocean currents could have carried lost Roman ships westward. Theory 2. Post-Columbian contamination. Skeptics argue the head was planted, either accidentally or deliberately, after European contact, perhaps a collector's item that ended up mixed with ancient artifacts. But here's the catch. The stratigraphy, the layers of soil, suggested the head had been buried for centuries, undisturbed. Payan himself was a respected archaeologist, and he documented the find carefully. The verdict in 2025? Most historians remain skeptical, pointing to the lack of supporting evidence. No Roman shipwrecks, no other Roman artifacts in Mexico, no genetic markers of Roman contact. But the head exists, and it was found where it shouldn't be. If authentic, it would prove that the ancient world was far more connected than we ever imagined. Number 2. The Main Penny. Viking exploration beyond the known world. Discovered 1957. Goddard Site, Maine. Age approximately 1,000 years old. In 1957, an amateur archaeologist digging at a Native American site in Maine uncovered something extraordinary: a small, worn silver coin. It was a Norse penny, minted between 1065–1080 AD in Norway during the reign of King Olaf III. The problem: Vikings are known to have reached North America around 1000 AD, establishing a settlement at Lons Aux Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. But Maine is hundreds of miles south of that site. So how did a Viking coin end up buried in Native American soil? Theory 1. Vikings explored further south than we know. Some researchers believe Norse explorers sailed much deeper into North America than history records, trading with native tribes, exploring the coast, and leaving behind traces we're only now discovering. Theory 2. The coin was traded. The coin could have been passed from tribe to tribe through extensive trade networks, eventually ending up in Maine without Vikings ever setting foot there. Theory 3. Modern contamination. Skeptics argue a coin collector could have dropped it at the site long after it was minted. But here's what makes it compelling. The site where the coin was found was ancient and undisturbed, filled with authentic Native American artifacts. The coin showed signs of wear consistent with being handled and traded over time. Other Norse artifacts, like iron rivets and possible ship fragments, have been found along the northeastern coast. The verdict, 2025. The Main penny is now widely accepted as authentic. The consensus is that it arrived through trade networks rather than direct Viking contact in Maine. But it proves one thing: Viking presence in North America was more extensive than we thought, and there may be other sites, still undiscovered, waiting to rewrite the story of Norse exploration. Number 1. The Shigir Idol, humanity's oldest wooden sculpture. Discovered 1890, Shigir Peat Bog, Ural Mountains, Russia. Age, over 12,000 years old. Revised dating, 2018. In 1890, miners working in a peat bog in Russia's Ural Mountains uncovered something massive, a wooden statue standing over 17 feet tall, carved from a single larch tree. When scientists first examined it, they estimated it was about 9,000 years old. Impressive, but not shocking. Then in 2018, new radiocarbon dating revealed the truth. The Shigir idol is over 12,000 years old. That makes it twice as old as the pyramids of Egypt, 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, the oldest known wooden sculpture in the world. But age alone isn't what makes it mysterious. The carvings. The Shigir idol is covered in intricate symbols, zigzags, geometric patterns, faces, abstract designs. It's not random decoration. It's deliberate, intentional, meaningful. But we have no idea what it means. The mystery. 12,000 years ago, humanity was supposed to be living in small hunter-gatherer bands, using stone tools, barely surviving. And yet, someone carved this massive, complex sculpture with precision and purpose. What did they know? Did they have a written language we've lost? Was this a religious idol, a territorial marker, or a map? Were they far more advanced than we've assumed? Modern analysis, 2020s. Researchers using 3D scanning and microscopic analysis have discovered the carvings were made with stone tools, but with incredible skill. The faces may represent ancestors or deities. The geometric patterns could be a form of proto-writing or symbolic communication. The verdict, 2025. The Shigir idol is proof that ancient humans were far more sophisticated than we've given them credit for. 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, people in the Ural Mountains were creating monumental art, recording information, and passing down knowledge through symbols. And we've only just begun to understand what they were trying to tell us.
These 6 discoveries share something in common. They don't fit the story we've been told. History is written by the victors, the literate, the powerful. But artifacts don't lie. They exist in the ground, waiting to be found, challenging our assumptions about who came first, how far they traveled, and what they knew. Were ancient people more connected than we thought? Did they cross oceans we assumed were impassable? Or is there something deeper, lost knowledge, forgotten technologies, or influences we can't yet explain? The truth is, we don't know. But every time we dig, every time we test, every time we question, we get closer. If you're fascinated by history's greatest mysteries, subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop a comment with which artifact shocked you most, and hit that like button if you want more deep dives into the unexplained. Because history isn't finished, it's just waiting to be rewritten. Turn on any documentary channel. Open any science news site. Check any viral video feed. What do you see? Mars missions, distant galaxies, black holes, the search for alien life on planets light years away. Space, space, space. Every resource, every headline, every conversation focused on what's out there. But almost nobody talks about what's down here, right beneath our feet, across deserts and mountains, hidden in plains, and buried under cities. Life-sized armies buried for millennia, fortresses built by single individuals using impossible methods, maps showing lands discovered centuries before they were officially found, objects that challenge everything we understand about human history. Some of these discoveries remain unexplained, others are barely studied, and a few, the most controversial ones, face skepticism that borders on deliberate dismissal. Today, we're examining 5 of Earth's most baffling discoveries, mysteries that exist right here on our own planet, waiting for answers. Because sometimes the strangest things aren't in distant space. They're buried in the ground we walk on every day. Discovery number 1. The buried army guarding an emperor's tomb. 1974, Shanxi Province, China. A group of farmers digs a well in their field. Routine work, necessary for irrigation. Nothing unusual expected. Then their shovels hit something hard. Not rock, not clay, something else. They uncover a face, then another, then entire bodies, life-sized figures made of terracotta clay, buried in organized rows. What they'd discovered would become one of the most significant archaeological finds in human history. The Terracotta Army. Over 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, 670 horses. All life-sized, all unique, and all positioned in precise military formations. This wasn't decorative art. This was a functional army, frozen in clay, meant to protect Emperor Qin Shi Huang in the afterlife. Every soldier's face is different, individual features, unique expressions. Some show determination, others reveal fear or anger. Hair is styled differently, armor varies by rank. Even their hands are positioned uniquely, some gripping weapons, others at rest. The level of individualization is staggering. These weren't mass-produced from molds. Each figure was handcrafted as a unique individual. The weapons they carried were real: bronze swords, crossbows, spears. Many were still sharp after 2,200 years underground. The crossbow triggers still functioned mechanically. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. This was accomplished in 210 BCE. No modern machinery, no computers for planning, no industrial manufacturing. Yet they created something modern engineers struggle to comprehend. The logistics alone are mind-bending. The clay, the kilns, the craftsmanship, the organization required to produce 8,000 unique figures. Estimates suggest over 700,000 workers were involved in constructing the Emperor's Tomb complex. The Terracotta Army is just one component. The actual burial chamber remains sealed, deliberately left unopened. Modern scanning reveals it contains a vast necropolis, rivers of mercury flowing through miniature landscapes, celestial ceilings mapped with stars, treasures beyond imagination. But archaeologists won't open it. The mercury concentrations are toxic, the preservation challenges insurmountable. Opening it might destroy everything inside. So, the Emperor's final resting place remains undisturbed, guarded by his clay army for over 2 millennia, a secret partially revealed but mostly preserved. And it reminds us that some of Earth's greatest mysteries aren't on Mars or distant moons. They're right here, buried in Chinese soil, waiting patiently to be understood. If ancient engineering mysteries fascinate you, hit that subscribe button, because next we're examining a stone fortress built by one man using methods that defy modern physics. Discovery number 2. The fortress one man built alone. Homestead, Florida, the 1920s. A Latvian immigrant named Edward Leedskalnin purchases remote property and begins a project that will baffle engineers for the next century. Working entirely alone, mostly after dark, he moves massive blocks of coral limestone, some weighing over 30 tons, and assembles them into an elaborate structure he calls Coral Castle. The stones are enormous. A single block weighs as much as several cars. Modern construction would require cranes, heavy machinery, teams of workers. Edward Leedskalnin was 5 feet tall, weighed about 100 pounds, worked alone, used no modern equipment that anyone ever witnessed. Yet he carved, moved, lifted, and positioned these megalithic blocks with precision that modern stonemasons can't replicate. Some features seem impossible even by modern standards. A gate weighing 9 tons balanced so perfectly on a single point that a child could push it open with one finger. It rotated smoothly, silently, requiring almost no force. When engineers finally examined the mechanism decades later, they found it pivoted on a truck bearing extracted from a junkyard, showing Edward understood physics at a level that shouldn't have been possible for someone with limited formal education. The walls are perfectly aligned. The stones fit together with minimal gaps. Some features are oriented toward astronomical positions, solstice sunrises, specific star alignments. Edward carved furniture from stone, chairs, tables, even a bathtub, all from multi-ton coral blocks shaped with hand tools. Neighbors reported seeing him work at night by lantern light. Some claimed they heard him singing to the stones. Others said they witnessed stones moving while Edward stood nearby, though they couldn't explain how. He offered cryptic explanations when asked about his methods. He mentioned understanding magnetism and leverage. He spoke of knowing secrets the ancient Egyptians used to build pyramids. But he never revealed his actual technique, how he moved 30-ton stones alone, how he achieved such precise balance, how he lifted blocks higher than his own height. Modern engineers have attempted to recreate his methods, using period-appropriate tools, following his cryptic notes, studying the leverage points he might have used. They all fail. Moving even one of these blocks with a single person using only hand tools and basic mechanical advantage remains impossible by conventional physics. Edward died in 1951, taking his secrets with him. Coral Castle remains a monument to impossible engineering. Some theorize he discovered unknown principles of leverage. Others suggest he understood sound frequencies that could reduce weight. A few propose he accessed knowledge from ancient civilizations, preserved in texts we've lost. The most unsettling possibility, Edward wasn't special. He simply rediscovered techniques humans once knew and forgot, methods that ancient builders used routinely, but that we've somehow lost from our collective knowledge. If one man in Florida could move 30-ton stones alone in the 1920s, what were ancient peoples capable of? What techniques have we forgotten? Coral Castle doesn't just challenge engineering, it challenges our assumption that progress is always forward, that we always know more than those who came before. Subscribe now if you're intrigued, because next we're examining a map that shows lands discovered centuries before they were officially found.
Discovery number 3, the map that predates official discovery. 1957. In the archives of Yale University's Beinecke Library, a yellowed map surfaces from a private collection. At first glance, it's unremarkable, a medieval map showing Europe and the North Atlantic. Then, cartographers notice something impossible. The map depicts Vinland, a Norse name for part of North America, with remarkable accuracy. If genuine, this map was created in the 15th century, decades before Columbus's 1492 voyage. It would prove that Vikings not only reached North America, but mapped it well enough that their knowledge persisted for centuries. The implications are staggering. Everything we're taught about European discovery of the Americas would need revision. The debate began immediately. Carbon dating of the parchment suggested 15th century origins. The ink appeared period appropriate. The cartographic style matched other medieval maps. But the geography was too accurate. The shape of Vinland matched actual North American coastlines in ways a medieval forger shouldn't have known. Skeptics pointed out anomalies. Certain ink compounds seemed modern. The parchment preparation didn't quite match medieval techniques. Some cartographic elements appeared too sophisticated for the alleged date. Yet defenders noted that Norse sagas described Vinland exploration in detail. Archaeological evidence at Lons O Meadows in Newfoundland confirmed Viking presence around 1000 CE. The map's information could be legitimate. Here's where it gets truly strange. If the map is fake, it's an extraordinarily sophisticated forgery created before modern technology could verify details. The forger would need knowledge of Norse exploration that wasn't widely known in the 1950s. If it's real, it means medieval Europe possessed accurate maps of North America that were somehow lost or suppressed from mainstream knowledge for centuries. Both possibilities are disturbing. Either we're missing crucial historical records, maps and accounts that document pre-Columbian knowledge of the Americas, or someone created a forgery so convincing it still fools experts 65 years later. Recent analysis leans toward forgery. Certain chemical signatures in the ink appear suspicious, but even skeptics admit some elements remain unexplained. The Vinland map sits in Yale's collection, neither fully authenticated nor completely debunked, a question mark in cartographic history, and it reminds us that historical truth is often more fragile than we assume. Records get lost, knowledge gets suppressed, sometimes deliberately, sometimes through simple neglect. What else did medieval Europeans know about the world that didn't make it into official histories? What other maps exist in private collections, never studied, never authenticated? Hit that subscribe button, because next we're examining a pebble that might represent the first spark of human artistic consciousness.
Discovery number 4. The pebble that proves ancient consciousness. 1925, a cave in South Africa called Makapansgat. Anthropologists excavate layers of sediment dating back 3 million years, searching for evidence of early hominins. Among the bones and stone tools, they find something peculiar: a small reddish pebble, jasperite, about 3 inches across. At first, it seems insignificant, just a rock, but when they clean it and examine it closely, they see something that stops them cold. The pebble looks like a face: 2 holes resembling eyes, a crevice suggesting a mouth, features arranged exactly like a human face staring back at them. The pebble is completely natural. Water erosion created the features. No hominin carved or modified it. Nature accidentally created something that looks deliberately face-like. But here's what makes this revolutionary. This pebble doesn't belong in that cave. Geological analysis shows it originated over 30 kilometers away. Some early hominin, found this pebble, recognized that it resembled a face, and carried it 30 kilometers to this cave. 3 million years ago, long before modern humans existed. An Australopithecus africanus, an early human ancestor, picked up this pebble and kept it. Not for food, not for survival, not as a tool. They carried a rock 30 kilometers simply because it looked like a face. This suggests something extraordinary about early hominin cognition. They recognized patterns. They saw faces in random features. They appreciated resemblance. They kept objects for non-practical reasons. This might be the earliest evidence of symbolic thinking, the first glimmer of aesthetic appreciation, the beginning of art, religion, and abstract thought 3 million years before we thought such capabilities existed. Standard theories suggest symbolic thinking emerged maybe 100,000 years ago with Homo sapiens. Cave paintings, burial rituals, decorative objects. The Makapansgat pebble pushes that back 3 million years to a species we considered barely more intelligent than apes. Why did they keep it? Curiosity? Superstition? A nascent sense of beauty? We can't know. That hominin's motivations died with them 3 million years ago, but the fact that they carried it at all suggests their minds were more complex than we've given them credit for. They weren't just surviving, they were thinking, wondering,
appreciating. This small, unassuming pebble challenges our entire understanding of human cognitive evolution. It suggests that the capacity for symbolic thought, the thing that supposedly makes us human, existed in some form millions of years before modern humans appeared. And it makes you wonder, what other evidence of early consciousness exists that we've dismissed as meaningless? What other objects were cherished by ancient hominins for reasons we can't fathom? The Makapansgat pebble sits in museums now, a face from 3 million years ago, still staring at us, asking us to reconsider what we think we know about where consciousness began. Subscribe for more mysteries. Our final discovery is a humble stone that might hold the fate of an entire city. Discovery number 5, the stone that holds a city's fate. In the heart of London, surrounded by skyscrapers, buried among millions of people living their daily lives, sits a block of limestone. Unremarkable, easy to miss, protected behind a metal grate. It's called the London Stone, and according to legend, the fate of the entire city depends on it. Nobody knows how old it is. Nobody knows who placed it there or why. References to the stone appear in documents from the 1100s, but it was already ancient then. Some historians suggest it was a Roman milestone, the point from which all distances in Roman Britain were measured. Others believe it was ceremonial, marking a sacred site or boundary. But its true purpose has been lost. What remains are legends, and one legend dominates all others. As long as the stone of Brutus is safe, so long shall London flourish. The old saying suggests that London's prosperity, safety, and very existence are tied to this humble block of limestone. If the stone is removed or destroyed, the city will fall. Catastrophe will follow. London itself will cease to exist. It sounds like superstition, medieval folklore, the kind of legend every old city accumulates over centuries. Except London has protected this stone through everything. The Great Fire of 1666 destroyed most of the city. The London Stone survived. The Blitz of World War II leveled entire neighborhoods. The stone remained intact, deliberately protected even during bombing raids. When buildings around it were demolished for redevelopment, the stone was carefully preserved and repositioned. When roads were widened, the stone stayed. Construction projects worked around it. For over 1,000 years, through wars, fires, plagues, and reconstructions, London has kept this stone, as if the legend might be true, as if removing it might actually trigger catastrophe. Some say it's just tradition, historical preservation, maintaining a connection to London's ancient past. But others wonder, what if the legend reflects something real? Not supernatural, but psychological. What if London's identity is so tied to the stone that removing it would shatter collective confidence? What if the city's prosperity depends not on the stone itself, but on the belief in it? The London Stone has witnessed every pivotal moment in the city's history: kings and rebels, plagues and prosperity, Roman occupation through modern metropolis. It's seen empires rise and fall, technologies emerge and vanish, languages evolve, populations change, everything transforming except this one block of limestone. Today, it sits encased in protective glass, mounted in a wall on Cannon Street. Thousands of people walk past it daily without noticing, without knowing the legends, without understanding its supposed significance. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the stone doesn't need recognition. Maybe it just needs to exist, to persist, to remain as it has for over a millennium. Because whether the legend is true or not, London has chosen to believe it enough to protect this stone through everything. And that belief, that willingness to preserve a mystery rather than dismiss it, might be the real magic.
5 mysteries buried in Earth itself. An army of 8,000 unique soldiers protecting an emperor's unopened tomb. A fortress built by one man using methods physics can't explain. A map showing lands discovered centuries before official history admits. A pebble carried 30 kilometers 3 million years ago because someone thought it looked like a face. And a stone that's protected for over 1,000 years because legend says a city's fate depends on it. These aren't on Mars. They're not in distant galaxies. They're right here, on Earth, waiting for explanations that make sense. The Terracotta Army challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities. Coral Castle suggests we've lost knowledge we once possessed. The Vinland map hints at histories we're missing. The Makapansgat pebble pushes consciousness back millions of years. The London stone represents mysteries we've chosen to preserve rather than solve. And here's what unsettles me most. If these 5 mysteries exist, documented, studied, and still unexplained, how many others are buried that we haven't found? How many are dismissed because they don't fit accepted narratives? How many are actively suppressed because acknowledging them would require rewriting too much history? We spend billions searching for life on Mars. We point telescopes at distant stars. We send probes to the edges of the solar system. And that's valuable. That's important. But maybe we should also look down, dig deeper, question more carefully. Because the strangest mysteries might not be light years away. They might be buried in our own soil, hidden in our cities, preserved in museums, waiting for us to ask better questions. If you want to explore more mysteries hidden on our own planet, subscribe to this channel, because the more we dig into Earth's past, the stranger our own story becomes. Imagine hearing voices from 5,000 years ago, not through recordings or writings, but through stone, through clay, through monuments that were never meant to crumble. Our ancestors couldn't speak to us directly. They didn't know our languages. Many didn't have writing as we understand it, but they found other ways to communicate across millennia. They carved their fears into rock faces. They shaped their beliefs into clay. They built structures aligned with stars we still see today. And they left symbols, thousands of them, that we're only beginning to understand. Every artifact is a message. Every carving is a story fragment. Every mysterious symbol is a secret that survived when empires fell and languages died. Today, we're decoding 5 of the most remarkable messages our ancestors left behind, communications that crossed the barrier of time itself. And what they're trying to tell us might be more important than we realize. Discovery number 1. The pillars that held the universe. Saqqara, Egypt. Just beyond the ancient capital of Memphis lies one of humanity's oldest burial grounds. For over 3,000 years, pharaohs and nobles were laid to rest here, each tomb sealed with rituals meant to ensure eternal life. But scattered throughout this necropolis are stones that puzzle even experienced Egyptologists. Massive blocks, some weighing several tons, all bearing the same symbol, the Djed pillar. In Egyptian belief, this wasn't just a symbol. It represented the backbone of Osiris, god of the afterlife, stability, endurance, the ability to rise again after death. At first, they seem like religious markers, decorative elements meant to invoke divine protection. But look closer. These aren't simple carvings on convenient stones. These are monolithic blocks, deliberately quarried, transported enormous distances, and positioned with astronomical precision.
Some weigh more than modern cars, yet they're placed perfectly, aligned with architectural features, oriented towards specific directions. The pyramid complex of Pharaoh Djedekare-Isesi, built around 2400 BCE, contains some of the most impressive examples. Massive jed stones integrated into the structure itself, not as decoration, but as fundamental architectural elements. But here's what makes them mysterious. Moving stones this large without modern equipment is already challenging, but these were carved first, detailed reliefs cut into multi-ton blocks before transport. Why make the task harder? Why not move the raw stone and carve it after placement? Unless the carving itself was crucial, unless the Jed symbol activated something, transformed ordinary stone into something with purpose. Some researchers believe the Jed pillars were cosmically aligned. Their placement in pyramids and temples correspond to star positions, specific constellations visible during construction. The ancient Egyptians believed pharaohs became stars after death. The Jed symbol represented the cosmic axis, the connection between earth and sky, between mortal and divine. Were these stones simply religious art, or were they components of something larger, a system for ensuring resurrection, for guiding souls to the stars, for maintaining cosmic order? Every angle seems calculated, every placement deliberate. The precision suggests knowledge we often don't credit to ancient Egypt, understanding of astronomy, geometry, and possibly spiritual physics we no longer comprehend. The Jed pillars remain, still carved with their symbols, still positioned where ancient builders placed them, still asking us to understand what they meant, not just as religious icons, but as functional components of a system designed to defeat death itself. If ancient Egyptian mysteries fascinate you, hit that subscribe button, because next we're examining rock art that might depict beings who weren't entirely human.
Discovery 2. The paintings showing impossible beings. The Sahara. Today, it's the largest hot desert on Earth. Hostile, barren, lifeless for thousands of square kilometers. But 10,000 years ago, this was paradise. Rivers flowed, lakes stretched to horizons, forests teemed with wildlife, and humans lived here, thriving in a landscape we can barely imagine. In southeastern Algeria, rising from the desert floor, is a sandstone plateau called Tassili Najir. Hidden in its canyons and cliffs are over 15,000 rock paintings and engravings, some of the oldest and most mysterious art on Earth. Most show exactly what you'd expect: animals, hunters pursuing game, people dancing, daily life preserved in ochre and charcoal. But some paintings show something else, something that doesn't fit. They're called the roundhead figures, and they're deeply unsettling. These figures aren't grounded, they float. Their heads are enormous, circular, featureless spheres. No faces, no eyes, no mouths, just blank, round heads attached to elongated bodies. Their limbs stretch in ways human bodies don't. Arms extend too far, legs bend at wrong angles. They hover above the ground as if gravity doesn't apply to them. Who were these meant to represent? Spirits? Ancestors transformed by death? Shamanic visions encountered during rituals? Or something else? Beings these ancient Saharan people actually witnessed? Entities so strange they could only be depicted as floating, faceless forms. The art spans thousands of years. The earliest paintings date back over 12,000 years. They show the transition as the Sahara dried. First, lush vegetation and wild cattle, then domesticated herds, then horses and camels as the desert encroached. Each period reveals adaptation, humans learning to survive as paradise became wasteland.
But throughout all periods, the round-head figures appear, consistent, recurring, as if they were more than mythology. In the 1950s, French archaeologist Henri Lot brought Tassili N'Ajjer to the world's attention. He documented thousands of images, though his methods, sometimes tracing paintings directly, damaged some irreplaceable art. But what he revealed was astonishing. Entire cave systems filled with paintings, narrow canyons where every surface is covered, dancers, horned figures, elaborate patterns in colors that remain vivid after millennia. Walking through these canyons today, you feel surrounded by voices, messages left by people who desperately wanted to record something. Daily life, yes, but also something stranger. The round-head figures aren't random. They're deliberate, carefully painted, repeated across vast distances, as if multiple communities, separated by hundreds of kilometers, all witnessed the same phenomenon and felt compelled to record it. Were they showing religious visions, spiritual journeys, or documenting encounters with something physical, beings who appeared, interacted, and then vanished, leaving only these haunting images as proof? We can't know. The people who painted them left no written explanations. Their language is lost. Their beliefs are forgotten. But the paintings remain, floating figures with blank faces, beings unlike anything in nature, messages we can see but can't quite understand. Subscribe if you're intrigued, because next we're examining ancient models of chariots that might have encoded astronomical knowledge.
Discovery 3. The chariots tracking the heavens. Around 3000 BCE, in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the Sumerian civilization was revolutionizing human society. They invented writing, developed mathematics, created the first cities. And among their artifacts are small bronze objects that seem simple at first glance, but become more fascinating the longer you study them. Sun chariots. Miniature bronze sculptures showing a disc representing the sun pulled by horses across the sky. They're small, typically just a few inches long, delicate work in bronze, wheels that actually rotate, horses with defined muscles, discs engraved with patterns. At first, they seem like decorative art, religious symbols showing humanity's awe of the sun. Pretty objects made by skilled craftsmen. But look closer. The level of precision is extraordinary. The wheels aren't just decorative, they're functional, showing understanding of axles, rotation, mechanical advantage. The horses are positioned for balance. The disc is weighted correctly for the structure. These weren't made by artists guessing at how chariots work. They were made by people who understood mechanics, movement, and possibly much more. Similar sun chariots appear across ancient cultures. The most famous example is the Trundholm sun chariot from Denmark, a gilded disc pulled by a bronze horse, wheels crafted with such precision that it still rolls smoothly after 3,400 years. Why did distant cultures, Mesopotamia, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, all create similar objects? Was this independent invention, or was knowledge being shared across vast distances? Some researchers believe these chariots served practical purposes beyond symbolism. They might have been teaching tools, models demonstrating the sun's movement across the sky, helping people understand seasons and predict solstices. Others suggest they encoded specific astronomical knowledge. The disc angles, the wheel ratios, the positioning of the horses, all potentially containing mathematical relationships related to solar cycles. If you align the Trundholm chariot correctly and track shadows throughout the year, certain positions mark equinoxes and solstices with remarkable accuracy. Coincidence or deliberate design? Ancient peoples needed to track seasons for agriculture. Planting and harvesting at the right times meant survival. These chariots might have been more than religious art. They could have been scientific instruments disguised as devotional objects. Every detail seems meaningful. The number of spokes in the wheels, the patterns on the disc, the positioning of the horses, as if the craftsmen were encoding multiple layers of information into a single beautiful object. Were these chariots records of observations made over generations? Knowledge compressed into bronze, preserved through ritual and reverence, passed down as sacred objects that held practical secrets? We can admire their craftsmanship, we can recognize their symbolic importance, but we may never fully decode what their creators knew, what astronomical wisdom they compressed into miniature bronze chariots that still fascinate us millennia later. Hit that subscribe button if you're still watching. Next, we're examining a clay head so realistic it shouldn't exist in its time period.
Discovery number 4. The face too real for its time. High in the mountains of Guerrero, Mexico, in one of Mesoamerica's most remote regions, archaeologists discovered something that made them question everything they knew about early American art. A terracotta head, life-sized, created sometime between 1500 and 900 BCE, over 3,000 years ago. And it's disturbingly realistic. This isn't stylized art, it's portraiture, actual human features captured with precision that seems impossible for its era. The eyes are deep set, positioned exactly as real human eyes would be. The cheekbones are sharply defined. You can see bone structure beneath imagined flesh. Every strand of hair is individually textured, falling naturally as real hair would. Most Mesoamerican art from this period is symbolic. Olmec colossal heads have distinctive features but stylized proportions. Mayan sculptures show idealized forms. Everything is representational rather than realistic. But this head is different. It looks like it could have been sculpted yesterday. The anatomical accuracy, the individualized features, the sense that a specific person is staring back at you. Who was this person? Because this clearly represents someone specific, not a generic human, not a deity, not an idealized ancestor. This was someone important enough that their features needed to be preserved with absolute accuracy, someone whose appearance mattered so much that the sculptors spent countless hours capturing every detail. The size and weight suggest this wasn't casual art. Terracotta this large requires skill, keeping clay moist enough to work, but structured enough to support its own weight. The firing process alone would have been complex, requiring careful temperature control to prevent cracking. This was a major project. Resources were invested, master craftsmen were employed, for a purpose we can only guess at. Some scholars suggest it was part of a burial, perhaps placed in a tomb to represent the deceased. Others believe it might have been used in rituals, positioned where people could see it, interact with it, perhaps even speak to it as if addressing the person it represented. The level of realism suggests another possibility. This was meant to preserve someone's actual appearance, not metaphorically, literally, to ensure that future generations would know exactly what this person looked like. But if that was the goal, we've lost the context. We don't know who they were. We don't know why they mattered. We don't know what they accomplished that made them worthy of such painstaking commemoration. All we have is the face staring at us across 3,000 years, asking us to remember someone whose name is lost, whose deeds are forgotten, whose civilization left almost no written records. There's something haunting about it. The eyes seem to follow you. The expression appears to shift in different lighting, sometimes serene, sometimes questioning, as if asking, "Do you know who I am? Does anyone remember?" 3,000 years ago, someone thought this person's face was worth preserving forever. They succeeded. The face survived, but everything else, the name, the story, the reason is gone. Subscribe for more ancient mysteries. Our final discovery involves thousands of carvings made over millennia in one of Earth's most remote locations.
Discovery number 5, the Mountain of 1,000 Voices. In the remote mountains of Kyrgyzstan, at altitudes exceeding 3,000 meters, where the air is thin and the temperature brutal, lies one of the world's most extensive collections of ancient petroglyphs. Saimali Tash. In the local language, it means embroidered or painted stones. But that name doesn't capture the scale. Over 10,000 carvings, possibly many more still undiscovered. And they span time from 4000 BCE to medieval periods, over 5,000 years of humans returning to this same place, adding their voices to stone. Why here? This location isn't convenient. It's not on major trade routes, it's not near water sources or agricultural land. Reaching it requires difficult climbing and dangerous conditions. Yet generation after generation made the journey, carried tools, spent days or weeks carving, then returned home knowing others would come after them and add more. The carvings themselves show incredible variety. Humans hunting, animals running, horsemen pursuing prey, geometric patterns that might be maps, might be astronomical charts, might be something else entirely. Some images are clearly shamanic, figures in trance states, spirit animals, symbols associated with altered consciousness. This might have been a sacred site where spiritual leaders came to commune with the divine. Others appear more practical, hunting scenes showing techniques, animal migration patterns, seasonal changes. Knowledge being recorded for those who would come later. The dedication required is staggering, carving into solid rock at high altitude with bronze or stone tools, hours of patient work for each figure, hands going numb in the cold, lungs struggling in thin air. But they kept coming back, kept carving, kept adding to what previous generations had started. Walking among these stones today, you can see the layers. Older carvings weathered smooth, newer ones still sharp-edged. 5,000 years of human expression compressed into a single location. It feels like a conversation, each carver responding to what came before, adding their own experiences, contributing their own observations, building a collective memory that spans centuries. Some researchers believe Saimali Tash was an astronomical observatory. Certain rock formations align with solstice sunrises. Some carvings appear to track star positions or mark celestial events. Others suggest it was a pilgrimage site, a place where people came to mark important life transitions, to seek visions, to connect with ancestors who'd carved here before them. But perhaps the most powerful interpretation is the simplest. Humans needed to leave marks, to say, I was here, I saw these things, I lived, to communicate across time with people they'd never meet. Every carving is someone's attempt to defeat time, to ensure that something of them, their observations, their beliefs, their existence, would survive after they were gone. And it worked. Thousands of years later, we're looking at what they carved. We may not fully understand the meanings, we can't know their names, but we're receiving the message. They existed, they thought, they observed, they felt the need to record something. And across 5,000 years, that message reached us. That's the real power of Saimali Tash. Not the individual images, but what they represent collectively. Humanity's enduring need to communicate, to preserve, to reach across the impossible barrier of time and connect. 5 locations, 5 ways our ancestors tried to speak to us across time. Massive stones carved with symbols of resurrection and placed with cosmic precision. Rock paintings showing beings that float and lack faces. Bronze chariots encoding astronomical knowledge in miniature. A face so realistic it preserves someone's actual appearance, and thousands of carvings made over millennia in a remote mountain sanctuary. What connects them? this: they're all attempts to defeat time, to ensure that knowledge, beliefs, faces, and observations would survive when everything else crumbled. Our ancestors couldn't write to us. Many had no writing systems at all, but they found other ways. They carved into stone that would last. They shaped clay that could survive fire and burial. They built monuments aligned with stars that never change. And the messages got through. We're reading them now. Thousands of years later, we're standing in front of their carvings, holding their sculptures, measuring their monuments. We may not understand everything they tried to tell us. The round-head figures remain mysterious. The sun chariot's full meaning is unclear. Simile Tosh's patterns are still being decoded. But the fundamental message is clear. We existed. We observed. We thought deeply about the world. Remember us. And here's what's humbling. Thousands of years from now, what will remain of us? What messages are we leaving? What objects will future humans find and struggle to understand? Our ancestors assumed their civilizations would last forever. They were wrong, but their messages survived. The carvings outlasted the empires. The symbols outlasted the languages. The monuments outlasted the cities. Maybe that's the real lesson from these 5 discoveries. Not just what our ancestors were trying to tell us, but how they chose to say it, in materials that transcend time, in locations that outlast nations, in forms that speak without words. They succeeded. Against all odds, across unimaginable spans of time, their messages reached us. And now we're responsible for understanding them and for leaving our own messages for those who come after us. If you want to explore more messages from our ancestors, subscribe to this channel, because every ancient artifact is a voice speaking across time. And the more we listen, the more we understand about who we are and where we come from.